On the flip side of that is something like animal cruelty, which most of the time is not actually legal, and most of the time nobody would actually agree with that. And you probably find like an antisocial or a pathological person, a psychopath would be the person, would be the reason behind the animal cruelty or murders or rapes or whatever. On average, nobody really agrees with this. I still think that so what I'm saying is some topics you might feel passionate and anti, but people would see it as humor and people are for it, because you do get men and women who are for the sex industry and contribute to the sex industry by using the services. Okay, so if you were to be wrathful about how much you hate it, it would possibly hurt the person, or possibly hurt your friendship. But on the flip side of that is topics that most people would find dark and terrible and not good, which is like, say, rape or animal cruelty or anything like that. But I still think you need to channel that right. I still think that's something where you could choose to be self-controlled. A lot of the behavior aspects of mental illness and a lot of the acting out is something that you can control. We just choose not to because it's easier to just be wrathful and then regret it afterwards. So what I'm saying is that I do think, number one, you're allowed to be passionate about topics that you don't think are right. Okay. Number two, I think choosing to be self-controlled depending on the environment, because that's normal, appropriate socializing, and therapist and dear diary. So if you can't get to your therapist, dear diary, and even some things maybe that you don't feel like you want to share with your therapist because of embarrassment or whatever reason, you can do dear diary. Because what I have learned through doing dear diary, meaning writing in a diary, I call it dear diary. Because, not that I actually start my letters with dear diary, but it's basically writing everything that you think and feel and experience from a subjective perspective into a book. And so what you can do is, like, a year later or a week later, you can go back and read and be like, whoa, that sounded harsh. I was angry about that, and that was actually a small issue. Or I was angry and I can tell the person this, but I can't tell them like this, because they have feelings too. So with all that in mind, specifically because borderline and narcissism and major depression, in my opinion, are mental illnesses where you act out, where you see certain behavior affecting other people and you can choose it. Okay, you can choose self-control. I do think partly with narcissism, the person is aware of it and they do it because they don't care. This is what I say, you do have the aspect of self-control. But if the person doesn't realize they have a personality disorder, or that they realize that they manipulate and they enjoy it, but they don't see it as it's a bad thing, because everybody manipulates, then they're not going to see that what they're doing is actually hurting people. Okay? This is also where I say, like, putting it down in a diary, because then you can actually read and be like, is this normal? I don't know. But a lot of time with doing dear diary, you can see pattern as well, which is why many people would say put a date there. On the other side of that, I do want to do a talk on manipulation, because I do think that there's positive and negative forms of manipulation, and manipulation is not necessarily a bad thing. To a degree, even I want to mention this quick section here where I say God manipulates on a level where He steers us in the direction that He wants us to go by putting desire into our hearts. It's not negative manipulation. It's kind of like an idea or a desire that He puts, or drawing or pulling to Him, or pulling to a certain field or whatever. And he initiates that, and then He gives you the room to say, I want to do this, or I want to do that, or I don't want to, and I don't want to. So there's freedom of choice, and I do see freedom of choice because Adam and Eve were given the freedom of choice in the Garden of Eden. And she was given an idea, And she could have chosen not to take the idea, but she didn't. And that's where the freedom of choice comes in. But that's my perception, my understanding of freedom of choice from Garden of Eden, right? So I see manipulation as a positive thing, but for me manipulation becomes a negative thing when you're trying to manipulate people to get what you want for your own personal gain, even if it means hurting, lying and deceiving another person. So because the thing is that nobody likes to be lied to or deceived, right? So if you're saying this and this and this in order to get that, if you love me, you'll have sex with me. If you this, da 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 da, that is manipulation, and then the person automatically feels like, well, I do love him, or do have strong feelings for him, so he probably does deserve this, or she probably does deserve that. And that's not positive. And so this is connected to major depressive. This is connected to bipolar. This is connected to borderline bipolar as well. This is connected to narcissism. Okay. So there is a difference between positive and negative manipulation. Also, another example of positive manipulation is taking flour and eggs and milk and salt and throwing it together. So it's taking different ingredients, throwing it together, mixing it, and you now manipulating those ingredients to make pancakes. Okay? So manipulation can be a sense of a parent taking vegetables and putting it inside a chicken sandwich in order to get your kids to eat vegetables because they're selective on what they eat. And any parent with little children or even teenagers will struggle with this. So you're manipulating the food for the health of the other person. It can come in positive and negative forms. I think recognize that you're manipulating, having a look at, do you want to be treated this way? So then don't treat other people that way. Okay? Now start with, you normally feel tired and, not tired, sad, empty and hopeless. Okay, so I'm not talking about like when your dog dies. I'm not talking about if you live in a different country to your parents and you have maybe half a day or a full day or an hour where you're sad. That is normal. You're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to be homesick over that. If you feel like you're in a season of unemployment, it can be a bit of a depression dip in that, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's major depressive disorder. It might just be that you've been looking for work for the past year and you cannot find work, so you feel hopeless about work. Not necessarily about life, but about work. Okay? I think where it becomes a problem, where it becomes major depression, is where you feel hopeless in general. So you might even have a job. You might even have all these friends, and there's just this cloud that's over you. So some things might be circumstantial that contribute to the major depression, but a lot of the time I do think it starts with a chemical imbalance in the brain where medication is necessary.